My mom raised her voice. Apologize to your brother right now, or get out of my house. My dad avoided my eyes, silently agreeing. I just said, all right, then I walked away, and what happened afterward destroyed them. Mom screamed at the top of her lungs. If you don't apologize to your brother right now, get the hell out of my house. Dad just looked away, silently agreeing. I stared her dead in the eye and said, got it. That same night I was gone, and what happened next completely destroyed them. Separated. I'm Everly Sage, 23, filming this from the very first embroidery studio I built from nothing on the outskirts of Seattle. 6 years ago I walked out with $1 bag and $4,000 saved from side jobs. Today I own 3 locations, and the life I always wanted while the family that kicked me out is barely surviving. Here's how their perfect little world fell apart after I left. If you want to know exactly how far they sank, and why I never looked back, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications. It really helps the channel grow and lets me keep dropping these stories. Thanks. Let me take you back 6 years to the night that changed everything. I was growing up in a typical middle-class house in the suburbs outside Tacoma. My mom Pamela was the chief accountant at a logistics company downtown, which meant she controlled every single dollar that came in and went out. My dad Richard sold appliances at a big box store and brought home less than half what she did, so he never rocked the boat when it came to money decisions. From the day my little brother Grayson was born 2 years after me, he became the absolute center of the universe. If he pointed at something in a store, it was in the cart before he finished the sentence. New iPhone every year the second it dropped. The latest Xbox the week it launched. Private basketball lessons twice a week. When he turned 16, Mom surprised him with a brand new 50cc scooter, even though the legal age was 17. She just paid the fine and called it done. I, on the other hand, got my allowance cut off completely the moment I turned 13. Mom said I was old enough to earn my own way. My clothes came from thrift stores, or hand-me-downs from cousins I barely knew. I paid for my own prepaid phone plan starting in 8th grade by babysitting neighbors on weekends. If I asked for $20 for a field trip, the answer was always the same. Figure it out yourself, Everly. The double standards were insane. Grayson could have friends over any time, no questions asked. My friends needed permission 3 days in advance, and only if Grayson didn't already have plans. His room was off limits to everyone, including me. My room, Mom walked in whenever she felt like it, went through my drawers and threw out anything she decided I didn't deserve. Grayson missed curfew by hours. Mom waited up with snacks. I came home 10 minutes late once and got grounded for a month. Dad never stepped in. He just shrugged and say, your mom handles the money, I handle the yard. He was terrified of her temper, and even more terrified of losing the comfortable life her paycheck provided. So he stayed quiet, and I learned fast that speaking up only made everything worse. By 15 I was done begging for fairness. I started looking for a real way out. That's when I found my Aunt Meredith's little embroidery shop 20 minutes from home. Meredith, his mom's older sister, the family black sheep because she never married and wasted her life running what Mom called a hobby store. I walked in one Saturday looking for a job, any job. She took one look at me, handed me a broom and said, start today, $10 an hour cash. I showed up every day after school and every weekend. Meredith taught me everything. How to thread the industrial machines. How to digitize design so they stitched clean. How to price custom orders so you actually made money instead of losing it on thread and stabilizer. She let me run small jobs on my own within a month because I picked it up fast and never complained about staying late. She paid me fairly, never short at a dime, and never treated me like a kid who didn't belong. One slow Tuesday, she watched me finish a 20-piece dance team order and said something I still carry with me every single day. Skills are the only thing nobody can take from you, Everly. Not your mom. Not your teachers. Nobody. Keep building them. That shop became my escape. I'd rather spend 10 hours hooping jackets and trimming jump stitches than 10 minutes at home listening to Mom brag about Grayson's latest achievement, while pretending I didn't exist. The money I earned went straight into a separate account Mom didn't know about. By 17, I had over $4,000 saved, every dollar earned with my own hands on those machines. I kept my head down, counted the days until graduation, and told myself the second I turned 18 I was gone for good. I had no idea it wouldn't even take that long. One Thursday night when I was 17, everything exploded. I was 17 senior year, locked in my bedroom, racing the clock on the project that would make or break my scholarship applications. This wasn't some throwaway assignment. It was the senior capstone for the fashion and embroidery design track, 40% of my final grade, and the single piece that had to blow the judges away. I had spent $300 I'd saved for 6 months on one perfect yard of Italian silk dupaillon in ivory, plus another 80 on the custom-dyed threads and the hand-built oak hoop frame I'd assembled myself. The design was a bridal veil with intricate digitized lace edges that had taken me over 30 hours just to get the stitch out perfect. Deadline was first period Monday morning. The house was quiet for once. Mom was downstairs balancing the monthly budget. Dad was at his second job closing the appliance store, and Grayson was supposedly doing homework. I had the big industrial machine set up on the folding table, tension dialed in exactly, stabilizer whooped tight, everything ready for the final 6-hour run. Then my door flew open without a knock. Grayson marched in wearing his varsity jacket, even though he was only a freshman on JV. He had his phone in one hand and a half-assed sketch on notebook paper in the other. "I need the machine for like 30 minutes. He said, already reaching past me to the control panel. "No, absolutely not. I'm in the middle of the final stitch out. One wrong move, and the whole thing is ruined. Come on, Everly. It's 12 shirts for the team. Coach said, if we look pro tomorrow, we're basically guaranteed new uniforms next year." I said no, use the little brother machine in the basement, or wait until Monday night when I'm done. His eyes narrowed the way they always did when someone dared tell him no. I'd seen that look turned on teachers, coaches, even Mom when she rarely tried to rein him in. But never full force at me. "You think you're special because you're chasing some stupid scholarship," he snapped. "Always acting like your little sewing projects matter more than everyone else." "Grayson, get out." He didn't. Instead, he grabbed my titanium embroidery scissors, the ones I'd bought with 3 months of tips, and in one violent sweep, slashed straight across the silk. Once, twice, 3 long gashes ripping the entire yard into ribbons. Threads snapped like tiny gunshots. Before I could move, he seized the oak frame with both hands and slammed it down on the corner of the metal table. Wood cracked loud. The hoop shattered, the whole piece collapsed in a ruined heap. I lunged forward. "Are you insane?" He wasn't done. He shoved me hard, both palms flat against my chest. I flew backward, hip slamming into the sharp edge of the cutting table. Pain shot up my side, so sharp I saw stars. The destroyed silk floated to the carpet like a dead thing. Footsteps pounded up the stairs. Grayson was already screaming at the top of his lungs, fake tears on cue. Mom burst through the door, face purple, Grayson right behind her, clutching his wrist like I'd broken it. "What did you just do to your brother?" she roared before I could even breathe. "Look at what he did." I pointed at the shredded silk, the broken frame, the scissors still in his hand. "That was $300 and 6 weeks of work. I don't care what he did. You do not put your hands on him ever." He pushed me first. He destroyed everything. Mom stepped so close I could feel her breath. "Apologize to your brother right now or get the hell out of my house." Dad appeared in the hallway behind them, still in his work shirt. Eyes locked on the carpet, hands buried in his pockets. Not a single word. I looked at the ruins of my project scattered across the floor. I looked at Grayson smirking through his crocodile tears. I looked at Mom shaking with rage on his behalf. I looked at Dad refusing to even glance up. Something inside me shut off completely, like a switch flipping to permanent off. I met Mom's eyes, voice flat and calm. "Got it." I turned around, walked back into my room and closed the door. That same night, I packed one duffel bag. The moment I shut the door on Mom's screaming, a switch flipped inside me. No raging, no crying, just ice-cold clarity. I dragged my biggest duffel from under the bed and started filling it fast. 7 pairs of jeans, 10 hoodies and tees. 2 weeks of underwear and socks. The only pair of boots that didn't have holes. My MacBook charger. The portable hard drive. With every single design file I'd created since freshman year. Birth certificate. Social security card. The thick envelope I'd hidden inside a slit I cut in the box spring 2 years earlier. $4,200 in 20s and 50s. I'd earned one custom order at a time since I was 15. I left the family photos, the childhood teddy bear, the participation ribbons from dance recitals Mom never attended. I left the yearbooks, the cheap jewelry, Anything that could be used as emotional blackmail later. If it didn't keep me alive or help me make money, it stayed. 32 minutes after I walked back into my room, I was done. I zipped the duffel, slung my backpack over one shoulder and headed downstairs like I was just grabbing a glass of water. The kitchen was empty. The overhead light harsh. I grabbed a pen, and the back of a power bill envelope from the junk mail pile wrote 4 words in block letters. I'm gone. Don't look for me. I placed it exactly in the middle of the table where Mom set her coffee every morning at 6:05 sharp. My keys to the 2004 Toyota Corolla were on the hook by the door. Dad had put the title in my name the day I turned 16, because it shaved $200 off insurance. I slipped out the front door at 2:03 a.m., pulled it closed until I heard the soft click, and walked to the car without looking back. The night air was cold enough to burn my lungs. I threw the duffel and backpack in the back seats, slid behind the wheel and turned the key. The engine coughed once, and caught. For the first time ever, the house looked tiny in the rearview mirror. I pulled away from the curb headlights off until I hit the main road. 2 hours north on I-5, almost no traffic, cruise control locked at 65. Music stayed off. Windows cracked 2 inches so the cold kept me sharp. Mile markers blurred past. Every mile felt like a chain snapping. Meredith's house sat on a quiet street in Olympia. A small blue Craftsman with the porch light always burning because her hours were all over the place. I rolled into her driveway at 4:01 a.m., killed the engine and sat there for a full minute, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. Then I grabbed my bags and walked up the steps. I knocked once. The door opened almost instantly. Meredith stood there in a faded robe, hair twisted up with a pencil, eyes squinting against the porch light. She took one look at me, the duffel, the backpack, the time on the clock inside, and stepped aside. Upstairs room is still empty, she said, voice rough from sleep. You look like hell. Coffee's on in 5. She didn't ask why I was standing on her porch at 4 in the morning with everything I owned. She just closed the door behind me and shuffled toward the kitchen. That first week I crashed on her living room couch because the upstairs bedroom was still half full of moving boxes from 2 years ago. I was at the studio by 7:30 every morning, running machines, sweeping threads, taking walk-in orders, whatever needed doing. Meredith paid me for every hour in cash at the end of the day. No charity, no questions. Nights I filled out the forms to switch to the district's independent study senior program. She signed as temporary guardian without blinking, drove me to the high school office herself, and waited in the parking lot while I handed in the paperwork. By day 8, the couch springs were murdering my back, so we hauled the boxes to the garage together. She handed me a set of clean sheets, a spare key, and that was it. I had a room with a door that locked and a window overlooking the backyard maple. I kept my head down, finished my classes online and lived at the machines. For the first time in my life, nobody was waiting at home to punish me for existing. 8 months later, they finally showed up. 8 months later, they finally showed up. I was in the back room finishing a rush order of 40 personalized dance team jackets when the front bell rang hard enough to rattle the thread racks. Aunt Meredith was up front doing a bridal fitting, so I set the last jacket on the pressing table, wiped the lint off my hands and walked out to greet whoever had just come in. Mom, Dad, and Grayson stood just inside the doorway like they were staging an intervention. Mom's arms were folded so tight her knuckles were white. Dad stared at the floorboards. Grayson leaned against the counter, scrolling on his phone with that same half-smirk he'd worn the night he destroyed my project. Mom spotted me first. Her eyes widened for half a second, then narrowed into the glare I knew too well. There you are. Grab your stuff. You're coming home. This little rebellion has gone on long enough. I stopped 10 feet away, arms loose at my sides. No. Dad finally looked up, voice soft like he was talking to a spooked horse. Everly, honey, we gave you time to cool off. Let's just go home and talk. Aunt Meredith stepped out from behind the fitting curtain, measuring tape still draped around her neck. She took one look at the three of them, one look at me, and moved to stand directly in front of me, shielding me like a wall. Can I help you folks? She asked, calm, but with an edge sharp enough to cut thread. Mom tried to sidestep her. This doesn't concern you, Meredith. Aunt Meredith didn't budge an inch. This is my shop, and Everly is my niece and my manager. If she wants to talk to you, she will. Otherwise, you need to leave. Now. Grayson snorted loud enough for the whole room to hear. You can't keep her here. She's still 17. I turned 18 3 months ago. I said, voice flat, and I'm exactly where I want to be. Mom's face flushed dark red. After everything we've done for you, you think you can just vanish and live off your aunt like some parasite? Aunt Meredith let out a short cold laugh. She earns more than her paycheck, Pamela. She runs this place better than I do most weeks. Try again. Dad tried the gentle approach. Sweetheart, your room is exactly the way you left it. Grayson even cleaned the garage so you'd have space for your machines. Grayson rolled his eyes but stayed silent for once. I looked straight at Mom. You told me to get out. I left. End of story. That was said in anger. Mom snapped. You're a child. You belong at home. I'm not a child anymore. And I'm not coming back. Mom took another aggressive step forward. Aunt Meredith raised one hand, palm out, stopping her cold. One more inch, and I'm calling the cops for trespassing. Your choice. The shop went dead quiet. The bride in the corner suddenly found the thread color chart fascinating. Dad put a cautious hand on Mom's arm. Pamela, let's go. We'll try again when everyone's calmer. Mom shook him off hard. No. She does not get to humiliate this family like this. I spoke again, calm and clear. I'm not the one doing the humiliating right now. Grayson finally opened his mouth. Whatever. Stay here and play with your little sewing toys for the rest of your life. Aunt Meredith smiled, didn't reach her eyes. Door's right behind you. Use it. They stood there another 10 seconds, Mom breathing fire through her nose. Dad staring longingly at the exit, Grayson already halfway out. Then the bell jingled violently as the door slammed behind them. Aunt Meredith locked it, flipped the sign to closed, and turned to me. You holding up okay, kiddo? I nodded once. Yeah, Aunt Meredith. I'm good. She squeezed my shoulder gently. Good girl. Back to work then. 2 months later, I walked across the small stage at the community college auditorium and picked up my diploma. I'd finished the online program 6 weeks early because I had nothing else eating my time except the shop and homework. Aunt Meredith sat in the third row, holding a hand-painted sign that said, Future Boss Lady in glitter. Nobody else from my old life bothered to show. I never gave them the date. The very next day, Aunt Meredith slid a new set of keys across the front counter, along with an updated paycheck stub. Official title, Studio Manager, 25% raise, and I got final say on hiring my first part-time employee. 7 straight years of learning every machine inside and out since I was 15 had finally turned into something real. Something mine. Something no one could ever take away again. 2 years passed in a blur. Aunt Meredith and I were running the Olympia studio at absolute capacity, when a 30-second video I posted on TikTok, me stitching a 10-foot cathedral-length veil with hand-digitized Venetian lace in real time, exploded overnight. 20 million views in 4 days in box, flooded brides from California to New York, begging for appointments. We hired 2 full-time embroiderers the next week, just to keep the machines from sitting idle. 6 months later, we signed the lease on a second location downtown, double the square footage. Huge street-facing windows, room for 6 industrial machines, and a proper design station. Opening day, we had a line out the door. The local news showed up for the ribbon cutting. They stuck a mic in my face and asked what it felt like to own a business at 20. I told them it felt like proof that when someone actually believes in you, you can build something unstoppable. That soundbite went viral too. 8 million more views more. Business doubled, then tripled. We brought on 2 more stitches and a front desk manager. Aunt Meredith put me on the lease as co-owner and started transferring 30% of the net profits into my name every quarter. I paid off the commercial machine I'd financed, opened a high-yield savings account, and for the first time had money that was earmarked for survival. Back in Tacoma, the opposite was happening. Grayson got his girlfriend pregnant at 17. Mom's reaction was predictable, full protection mode. She wiped out their remaining savings to rent the young couple an apartment, bought every baby item on the registry, paid the hospital bills when insurance fell short. 6 months after the baby arrived, the girlfriend walked out and never came back. Mom simply moved Grayson and the infant into the spare bedroom and took over everything: formula, diapers, pediatric visits, all on maxed-out credit cards because Dad's hours at the appliance store had been slashed to part-time after corporate restructuring. Dad started pulling overnight warehouse shifts on top of his day job just to keep the mortgage current, but the math never worked. Interest piled up. Late fees stacked. Mom began calling the studio landline once a week, then twice, then daily. Aunt Meredith quit answering after the third emergency that turned out to be Grayson needing new brakes for the used SUV Mom had bought him. Then my personal cell started blowing up. Unknown numbers blocked numbers. New numbers every time. Same script, different levels of desperation. Mom, the baby needs special formula. We're short $200 this month. Dad, we hate asking honey, but even a little would help with the electric bill. Grayson once at 3 a.m. clearly drunk. You're out there living fancy while we're drowning. You owe us? I let the first 3 calls go to voicemail. Listened once, then blocked every single number that came through. When the texts started from random phones asking for 300, 500, 1,000. Just this once I turned on Do Not Disturb for unknown callers and never disabled it. One night, after closing, Aunt Meredith watched me delete a string of 27 unread messages. She poured us each a glass of cheap red wine and said, "You don't owe them a single breath, kiddo. Remember why you left?" The calls eventually slowed, then stopped for months. I took it as victory. The downtown studio celebrated its first anniversary with a block party sale that got picked up by the morning news. Revenue was strong enough that Aunt Meredith raised my ownership percentage again and started talking about location number 3 before I even turned twice. I was 20 training new hires designing limited edition lace patterns that sold out in minutes online. And for the first time in my life, money was coming in faster than I could spend it responsibly. Then the foreclosure notice hit their house. By the time I turned 22, their house was gone. The 2 studios were running like clockwork. 6 full-time employees, total consistent 5-figure revenue every month, and a bridal waiting list booked 18 months out. Aunt Meredith and I closed on a small commercial building on the edge of downtown Olympia. Renovated it, and moved the original location into the new space. We added a dedicated workshop room with seating for 12, and started offering paid weekend classes. My name was on the payroll as co-owner. Health insurance finally kicked in, and we bought a wrapped cargo van with the studio logo on both sides so we could handle larger deliveries ourselves. Meanwhile, the foreclosure notice turned into reality. Years of maxed-out credit cards, high-interest cash advances, and Mom refusing to let Grayson face any real consequences finally broke them. The bank auctioned the Tacoma house. They moved everything they owned into a long-stay motel off I-5, one cramped room, with 2 sagging double beds, a hot plate and a mini fridge that hummed all night. Dad was pulling morning shifts, selling appliances, afternoon warehouse stocking, and 3 graveyard security gigs a week. Mom kept her remote bookkeeping job, added night office cleaning, and drove for 2 different delivery apps whenever she wasn't sleeping. Between them they were clearing 90 hours a week, and still couldn't cover the weekly motel rate, plus the minimum payments on 15 different cards. Grayson stuck it out in that room for 6 months. Then one Tuesday, while Mom was on a cleaning shift, he packed a single backpack, left the baby with a note on the dresser, and vanished. No phone call, no text, no forwarding address. Mom came home to a crying infant and an empty bed. She filed a missing person report, but at 19 he was legally an adult, and the police closed it in 48 hours. Word through the family grapevine said he was couch surfing in Portland, picking up day labor, and acting like the past 2 years never happened. I found out about the foreclosure from Aunt Denise over lunch. She still answered Mom's occasional calls out of guilt. I heard Grayson had bailed from a cousin's vague social media post. I didn't call. I didn't text. I didn't send a dime. That same year, I bought my first house. A 1940s 2-bedroom bungalow 8 minutes from the new building, listed as a fixer because the kitchen was original and the roof needed work. FHA loan, 3.5% down payment, actually lower than renting a 1-bedroom downtown. Aunt Meredith co-signed for the bank's comfort, but the deed and the mortgage were in my name only. I spent weekends ripping out ancient carpet, refinishing hardwood floors, and painting every room myself. It wasn't big. It wasn't fancy. But the keys were mine, and nobody could take them away. That's also when Colton went from regular team customer to something real. He coached a competitive softball program, and had been bringing jerseys in for years. One slow Thursday he hung around after dropping off an order, asked if I wanted to grab burgers after we locked up. I said yes. 6 months later, we were splitting weekends between my place and his, taking turns cooking, arguing over playlists, and falling into the kind of easy rhythm I never thought I'd have. He never once complained about the thread dust on my clothes, or the fact I sometimes worked until midnight on a rush veil. He liked that I could patch drywall and wire a light fixture without calling anyone. Life was steady, peaceful, and completely under my control. 3 months ago, Mom walked in alone. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon at the downtown studio. We were between bridal season, so the place was calm. I was in the back digitizing a new monogram when the front bell gave a single hesitant jingle. I figured it was a walk-in consultation and kept working. Aunt Meredith's voice drifted back low and surprised. "Pamela." I froze, needle still in my hand. I set it down, walked out front, and there she was, smaller than I remembered, hair grayer, wearing a cheap coat that looked like it came from a discount rack. No Dad, no Grayson. Just Mom standing in the middle of my shop, eyes red and swollen. She saw me and the tears started immediately. "Everly." I didn't move. "What are you doing here?" She took one step closer, hands twisting the strap of her purse. "I needed to see you. To say I'm sorry. Face to face." Aunt Meredith glanced at me, eyebrows raised. I gave her the tiniest nod. She disappeared into the office and closed the door. Mom kept talking, words spilling out like she'd rehearsed them 1,000 times. "I was wrong. About everything. The way I treated you. The way I always took Grayson's side. The night I told you to get out. I've never forgiven myself for that. I was a terrible mother to you. I see it now. I see how I destroyed us. Please, Everly. Please forgive me." She was crying hard, shoulders shaking, voice cracking on every word. Customers in the waiting area pretended to study magazines. One bride quietly slipped out the side door. I let her finish. Let every apology hang in the air until the shop was completely silent except for her ragged breathing. Then I spoke, calm, low, final. "I heard your apology." Her face lit up with desperate hope. "But we're done. Don't come back. Don't call. Don't text. Don't show up at my house. We're finished." The hope died instantly. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. I turned and walked back to my station. The needle picked up exactly where it left off. Behind me, the bell jingled once more as the door closed. I never looked back. That was the last time I saw her. Some people wait their whole lives for an apology that makes everything okay. I stopped waiting the night I drove away at 17. By the time those words finally came, I didn't need them anymore. They didn't fix the past. They didn't magically rebuild trust. They just proved how late they were. An apology you no longer need is just noise. Cutting someone off isn't cruel when staying would destroy you. It's survival. It's the moment you choose your peace over their comfort. It's the moment you stop letting the people who hurt you rent space in your head. I'm 23. I own 3 thriving studios. I have a house with my name on the deed. I have Colton who loves me on my worst days. I have Aunt Meredith who showed me what real family looks like. I have employees who respect me, customers who trust me, and a future I built thread by thread. I don't have Mom, Dad, or Grayson in my life, and I've never been happier. If you're watching this and you're still holding on to people who only love you when it's convenient, ask yourself one question. How much of your peace are you willing to trade for their approval? Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is close the door and throw away the key. Because an apology that comes after you've already healed, it doesn't mean anything at all.